Hello! Welcome to our Stranger Things commentary. This is Chapter 1, The Vanishing of
Will Byers.
Will Byers. This show is kind of a pleasant surprise for us. I think it was a pleasant surprise for everyone. No one really
Yeah, that's
saw.
an understatement.
Yeah, this one really came out of left field. I know people say that about a lot of different things that kind of blow up big overnight, but this show really was just like I had seen a few posters and maybe a couple little, trailer things on the YouTube for it, but really calling attention to it. And then I think I really saw the first like full poster. It looked like an old '80s VHS
Yeah.
cover, and I was like, all right, what is this?
And then it was like a day or two after it came out, and we just we
Ooh.
tried it,
Yeah,
and then we finished it in 2 days.
yeah, because I really didn't know what this was about or what to expect.
I
But
know.
this scene here is what got me hooked because I had seen this scene metaphorically speaking before, or literally, in so many kind of
I know, right?
creature feature, science fiction films, monster movies. So right away, this felt like something so familiar. Even the way those doors open up, it looks like kind of how they open up in Aliens and Carnosaur too. But this right here, I was like, if you grew up watching like '80s monster movies and creature features and science fiction, you've seen this scene, and right away, yeah, right here, right
Yeah.
here, this scene right here. I made a little short film in college. It was really low budget, nothing special, worth really talking about. But I did that shot there too, where this
Yeah.
drip, so because I'd seen it before. So right away I was like, okay. And here we are introduced to our protagonist. We have Finn Wilford here, Gatton. I'm trying to say his last name right, Matarazzo, and Caleb McCullum. That's his last name. Playing Lucas, Dustin, and Mike.
And then obviously Will.
Oh yeah, Will.
Yeah, I know it's hard to forget about him because he's gone
I
most
know,
of the time, but
Noah Schnapp, I guess his name. Will Byers. Probably has the least amount of screen time out of all these guys, but could arguably is the most important character
yeah,
in this film. Him and one other
in this film
in this.
feels like a film.
Oh, I know. I keep
Like
saying
a really
film.
long
A
film.
lot of people say film because a lot of people have even said, hell yeah. By the way, Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. This is so accurate, but yeah, it's not very long in terms of a series, 8 episodes. But it feels like but it's longer than a movie. So it feels like a very long movie, and because
Well, it
when
doesn't feel like a long movie, but it feels like
yeah,
a
that's the thing. It's paced very well, and it's one of those things where when you go to sit down and watch it, you end up binge watching it. Like on average, we will watch it like we rewatched it a few months back again, and we did like in 2 nights. We just did 4 episodes one night and then 4 episodes the
Yeah.
other night, and it just felt it wasn't like us like forcing ourselves to watch the next one. It just kind of happened. We kind of looked at the clock.
It's
Like,
like
oh.
one of the most natural Netflix binges ever.
Yeah, it was weird because we kind of looked at it like, holy shit, it's 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
we're like, we're watching.
And
This.
I was like, I want to keep going, but work.
Yeah, I know. So we had to bed. We forced ourselves to go to bed. But yeah, this is obviously takes place in the
Thing
'80s. Very much a throwback to kind of '80s. Ironically enough, movies that in the '80s did not do super well, but became kind of pop cultural, iconic things. Like you'll see the background they have posters like The Thing and Evil Dead. Um, there we get our look at Nancy Wheeler, played by Natalia Dyer.
You tried, bro. You tried.
I also love how these kids sound like kids.
I know.
They don't like nerf them basically, because we can't have kids saying bad words. When I was a kid their age, I mean they're playing kids who would be a little older than me. I have to admit that I was born in 1984, so this is technically just before I was born. But I was born, I kind of grew up late '80s, mostly the '90s, and we were little foul-mouthed shitheads. We were not polite. We were not clean. We were little assholes. And I like how these kids, they're not bad kids, but they talk and sound like real kids do.
Yeah.
Not like how you see like on TV shows they make kids way more nice and polite. They
That
don't.
beautiful synth.
I know. Well, that's the funny thing. This show, despite being shot with digital cameras, and yes, it has a fair amount of CG in it, it still very much feels like it was lifted from this time. These kids don't feel like kids playing 80s kids.
Yeah.
They feel like 80s kids, and it's so weird when I see them in interviews and talk shows, or just photos of them now and from photos shoots they do, looking like modern kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird because I keep thinking, wait a minute, they're 80s kids.
I know.
But they're not. These kids are like super duper millennials. It's like they're like ultra millennial, but they pull it off so well. I know we're just gushing about the '80s right now, but you kind of have to when you talk such a show. But no, I really like how they feel like they're from this time, because a lot of times I've seen movies or shows that supposedly take place in that time period, but they don't really look like they're from. Whoa, there we go. Get our first look at the Demigorgon.
Poor kid.
Yeah. But no, this show feels unapologetically 80s, and I like that.
I don't know if I ever noticed the shadow there before.
Of the Demigorgon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I picked up on it
If you
before.
look really hard, you see it, but yeah, I don't think I actually saw it before. I thought you just heard it.
Well, again, and I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but like shows and things from this time period, it's one of the things where the more you watch it, the more you find things. I mean, a lot of these movies that I've grown up watching, like Aliens and, Predator, Pumpkinhead, The Thing, Evil Dead, even years later, like, now I pretty much catch everything.
Yeah.
But I love that. You can kind of get a glimpse of it. That's so cool. I would, as an adult, I would start going back and watching these movies, and I would catch things that as a kid I would miss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these are movies that I've seen hundreds of times. So I like that, this is our third time watching it now through.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still catching new things. I like that. Looks like the dog from Gremlins.
Yeah.
I'm sure that wasn't an accident. But this feels less of like a rip-off of the 80s and more like the approach to these kinds of films. Yes, I know it's a TV show, but I'm going to keep saying film.
Yeah.
Because this basically is a really long film. It really, really is.
Yeah.
Pace, it plays it out. Like, if you were to watch this without any breaks whatsoever, if they have like a marathon mode version of this, I don't know if they do like a Blu-ray DVD, but like it's where it just doesn't break away.
Well, again, the way Netflix, it skips to the next episode, and usually it skips the opening, so that's why, again, it's so easy to binge it.
But if you could really just watch it without any breaks, it would literally feel like a long movie.
Yeah.
I love that.
I know. It's like, oh, hi there. Will here. Please don't hurt me. I don't know why he sounds like that, but...
Perfect. No, again, this it very much basically kind of takes the playbook from stories from this time, the 80s, and really applies them to this one. And my favorite opening credit sequence.
I know, it's so good.
It's so simple, though. Like, if you were just to describe to someone what the opening sequence is, it would just come off as like, this is going to be what we just skip over it. Like, okay, cut over it. Because there are shows that we watch that have actual...
Not to mention that
opening
the actual theme is so good, but...
But again, it sounds so analog, and it just feels like an old V8. It's so good.
And I think I saw that they actually... It's not digital, it's actually, like, done by backlighting.
Well, that's how they used to do these.
Yeah. They wanted it to feel authentic, so...
Well, sure it does. But it definitely adds something, there's something creepy about it. Just instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a simple opening, yet it works so perfectly.
That wallpaper.
I know. It's so strange to think that now this isn't even like retro. It's like a period piece now. And it's strange to think that the 80s were that long ago now, where they constitute as a period piece. And I think that's why this show, and a lot of other things now of the 80s that take place later, started to kind of work really well, because I think for the longest time, even though the 80s were over, they weren't so long ago where they felt like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here we have our our first look at Sheriff Jim Hopper, played by David Harbour.
AKA New Hellboy.
Yep, just he's cast as the new Hellboy, and at the time of this recording, we a photo of him as Hellboy has been released,
And
and
he looks badass.
yeah, it looks pretty badass. And again, I've seen this actor before in other things. I've seen, he's not completely unknown to me, but it seems like because of the success of Stranger Things, now a lot of these actors are front and center. People who we've cropped up here and there as like character actors, are now becoming like stars because this show is like a break. It's a breakout in the sense that it's like a big budget movie that's done really well, even though it's not a big budget movie. But usually when people do well on TV, there's always been kind of like this divide a lot of times between television success and movie success. And actors who do very well on television oftentimes have a hard time breaking into film. It's a different, and a lot of actors have tried.
Man, just gonna leave your TV on, bro?
But, I mean, there are actors who've done it. For instance, Clooney's done it very well. There have definitely been actors who have broken out big. But for the most part, a lot of them don't make the transition. But this feels like a movie, so I think for a lot of these actors, it's a lot easier because it doesn't feel like they're transitioning from like television to film, because this basically feels like a movie. And here we have 80s royalty Winona Ryder playing Joyce Byers, and there with her son Charlie Heaton playing Jonathan Byers, Will Byers' older brother. That was really the thing that got me interested, I think, in the show, and I heard that Winona Ryder was in it. I was like, oh man, Winona Ryder. I've always been a fan of hers. I've always liked her work. I've grown up on, a lot of her movies and stuff. She's had long hair for so long now, but it's still weird for me to see her with long hair because I still remember her from like the 80s and 90s when she had the pixie cut. Mm-hmm. And normally I prefer women with long hair. I've always liked women with long hair more. But for some reason, man, when it comes to short hair, I don't know. Winona always did it for me. And the great thing about having this take place in the 80s, no cell phones, no internet.
I know.
Because nowadays, this would be so much harder for the... I mean, he would be missing, but there'd be Amber Alerts. There would be like... Or whatever. They'd be like... people would be on social media. They'd be tracking social media.
Could do it. It'd be very different, and it wouldn't have the same charm to it.
Yeah.
I guess that sounds kind of corny.
I mean, he would still be lost, obviously, but I think people would know he's gone faster because he would be on Facebook. He would be on... Probably have a Twitter account. Probably on Instagram, Tumblr, whatever. There'd be more of him out there for people to know he's gone. Whereas... And of course, classic 80s school scene, you have to have the bully, and his douchebag best friend.
Yep.
They come in pairs. That's how it always was in the 80s. You had your asshole bully and his dumb best friend. that's so true. Oh my god. But I hate to say it. I don't know how it is now because I haven't been a kid for a while. I think it's supposed to be their version of the Truffle Shuffle, by the way.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Too.
But yeah, no. That's how it was. Bullies never ran alone. Like I actually encounter this, so I don't know any of you guys who are kids now, younger people, like God, I feel like such a fucking fossil having to say that now. But yeah, the bullies still come in pairs.
The most 80s character of all,
Barbie. I know.
Like from head to toe.
Like these kids are doing a really good job of acting from the 80s. I buy it. She literally looks like Doctor Who, like Time War. Got in the TARDIS, went to 83, snatched her ass up, and brought her back and brought her to the set, and just said, "You be you." She's become like this favorite character for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because Natalie here looks a lot like the actress who played Sloane in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mm. Like, she looks like her. Like, if they remade Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
there we go.
Cast her.
Steve.
See, teenagers being teenagers, not like pure of heart, and like, oh, we can't do that. Oh no, we touch hands. Let's blush. It's like, nope, we're making out in the bathroom. Ah, to be young again. No, again, I like how these kids are not playing 80s kids. They're playing kids in the 80s, and I think that's why it
Yeah.
feels natural. Because, again, I think a lot of times when you do quote unquote period pieces, people end up playing the characters from these time periods, regardless, not just the 80s, but any other time, more like a stereotype of, the kind of the stereotype of how they think they are. So if someone, they get their, like, kids from the 70s are saying groovy and far out every other word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these feel like just real kids. They just happen to be from 1983. You know what I mean? Because again, I lived in the 80s and you know 80s and 90s, and guess what? People were people then. Technology, fashions change, but a lot of it was like you.
I like how he's just in the girls' bathroom too. Like, and there's apparently no other girls in
Oh, I've seen that kind of shit happen. I
there.
remember seeing girls coming out of the boys' bathroom for various reasons when I was in high school. So being able to smoke indoors.
Right.
Yep. If there's gonna be anything that's a shocker to young people, it's like, yep, you could smoke indoors everywhere. They
Yeah,
actually
but
have.
to be fair, it's a good thing that's not the case.
Oh, I'm
anymore.
not. Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. But I remember, yeah, in the '80s you could smoke indoors pretty much everywhere. And then they had like started to get like non-smoking sections of places,
Mhm.
which really defeated the purpose because smoke doesn't
Yeah, you
adhere
can still
to
smell it.
boundaries. Because that's the thing. Back then, because there was no social media, there's no. It was if someone went missing, it would realistically take longer, really, for someone to notice. Because even if the kid ran off, or he's playing hooky, or he's at his friend's house, he'd be on Facebook, he'd be on Twitter, he'd be on Insta. I mean,
Mhm.
he would have a digital thumbprint somewhere. But back then, they didn't have that, so it was much harder either to notice someone was I mean yeah the parents and stuff would notice first, but like the general public, kids they went to school with, it probably would take longer for them to notice. You know what I mean? And it would be harder to track them because there would be no like you could track their cell phone. You could
Yeah.
like, well, he posted a picture of himself on Instagram 32 hours ago, blah, blah, blah. There was none of that.
He
So
tweeted from this location.
exactly, it was when someone went missing, they went missing. Like it was scarier because there were less options for you to find them. There was less resources. So I think it's like you're saying, it adds to the charm, but it also kind of heightens the fear factor
Yeah.
and the sense of dread, because for this mother right here, she really would have no way to find him. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing for her to do other than go to the cops. So when he's at first kind of here being a little dismissive about it, it's stressing her out because she's like, shit, you're my only option right now. I can't literally do anything else. So please take this seriously. Yeah, yeah, tell that to a mother.
I know.
99. Okay, so what's that 1%, asshole? I love how charming he is. He's one of my favorite characters. I don't know why. He's just something about him. He's
I
just,
know.
I know some people complain that Winona Ryder came off as a little like, one note in this.
She's
'Cause
a
how she-
frantic mom the
But
entire time.
and I was
like-
saying too, like I'm not even a parent yet, let alone a mother. But I'm just kind of like, your child. I mean, again, like if anything, I think it's more authentic that she is that way because it's like, yeah, this is kind of a one note situation for
Mhm.
a parent.
I don't know.
We have Matthew Modine here. We're gonna start getting our first look at kind of what's going on here a little bit. And also, one of the things I love about this, it very much plays on the idea, the whole, especially in this time. This is during the Cold War, and it was very, very fashionable for people not to trust the government. I'm not saying, oh my God, let's all trust the government now, but back then, if you think it's cool to like, hate the government or like, or like, oh man, the
And
government, they don't care
conspiracies.
about us. It was literally, if you think it's bad now, my God, in the 80s, it was like nobody trusted the government. It was very much a time of just distrust between like the American people and, kind of the powers that be. So a lot of the movies, surprise, surprise, the government was behind it. You had movies about, usually if there was a monster on the loose or a creature, a lot of times there was a government experiment. They were behind it. Even in books and stuff, it was sort of like you read like Dean Koontz's Watchers, for instance. It's all about a government experiment gone wrong and them trying to cover it up. And the movie version of that was very much the same thing. So the government being this shadowy organization behind something that they're hiding to the American public,
Endangering them.
yeah, is very is again was like the story, like the plot synopsis of so many films from the '80s. So even just seeing this is such a throwback to that.
Yum.
Now we're getting our first look at the and again, this is done with CGI. So it's not utilizing a lot of practical effects in that sense, because again, it's actually cheaper for them to do this as a digital effect, but
Yeah.
it still doesn't take away from the '80s vibe for me.
Mm-mm.
And here we are getting introduced to perhaps the most iconic character from all this. This is, the character that will be revealed as 11, L
Millie
for
Bobby
short,
Brown.
Millie Bobby Brown. If there was ever, if you look up the definition of breakout star in the dictionary, her picture is there. And now she is going to be playing a character in Godzilla, King of Monsters, coming out 2019, and she was the first person cast in that film.
Because they were like, oh, fuck, let's get her.
Well, yeah, and it's just so funny. Like, they needed a star. We were always wondering who they're going to put as a big star in the sequel, and she wasn't even on the radar when the first film came out, and now, overnight, she became a success. And she's so good. And her character, in a lot of ways, is kind of like how Arnold's T-800 became a big success, because that's a character who's very minimalistic, has very few speaking lines, kind of very dry delivery, even though she has a lot of more emotion.
Yeah.
But she, like Arnold did with the Terminator character, she does an enormous amount with very little. She uses minimalism at a lot, you know what I mean? And I think that's great that you buy her, you believe it, like, you know what I mean, like. I like to make sure she takes the fries,
I
though.
know.
And it's funny because you realize how, I guess good is the right word, because later on you'll realize what she can do, and right there, that guy grabbing her,
Yeah.
you realize how lucky that guy is.
He dodged a bullet.
Yeah, yeah. And what you get, it shows you that she's, and he's also going to be in King of Monsters. The teacher right here, he got cast as a Monarch agent. So, digging deep into the Stranger Things. And I love how these guys are like. It's a funny thing. Now it's cool to be a geek, and it's cool to be a geek about '80s nostalgia. These kids are geeks in the '80s when the '80s weren't anything special. They were just the time period you were in,
Yeah.
and it was not cool to be a geek. So these guys are like ultra like street cred right here. They are what a lot of people who grew up to be hipsters would then try to emulate. And for them, this was just them. Again, I just love how... You. By the way, the teacher's name is Randy Havens. Plays Mr. Clark. And I love how they're basically throughout this whole. I like how they're basically applying all the aesthetics of like D&D to this. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, that was Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
hard
Like, the
part.
creature itself is not actually the Demigorgon, but it's become the Demigorgon. You know what I mean?
Again, from a kid's perspective.
Yeah, well, that's...
Kind of.
And again, I like how they call, that stretch of road the Mirkwood, because when I was a kid, we'd have different parts in our neighborhood, but we would call them actually different things from, like, fiction that we liked. I mean, we just liken them to that, so that's a real thing. And then we would talk about it to our parents, and we would use the fictional names where our parents are like, where were you? What were you talking about? Oh yeah, I forget. Normal people. Don't call it this. They had a fort. He has a fort. We all had forts growing up.
Even I had a fort.
We had forts, man. Kids don't have forts anymore. Kids don't, Do kids go outside anymore? Hey, kids. All you kids out there, you guys go outside? They're like, outside. Is that an app? What is that? Again, I love all these references, all these movies, and people ask me, like, what would you do if you could travel back in the 80s? I would go to the movies. Are you kidding me? To see all these movies.
And it'd be way cheaper.
Yeah, way cheaper. When they first came out, oh my god. To experience them in a theater with an audience when it's fresh, that'd be so awesome.
It's like they're wearing inverted colors.
Oh, yeah, it's funny.
Blue on tinge?
I wonder if that was on purpose.
I don't know.
That was a good shot. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, dude. The Duffer Brothers did a really good job of how they shot this.
I know.
I mean, aside from the fact that it feels like, yes, like an 80s throwback and all that, but just the kind of the shot, this is going to be kind of the film nerd in me coming out, so sorry, folks. But a lot of the shot choices they use, the lenses, the angles, I don't know. The way you shoot a film, it's almost like a language in and of itself. So how you shoot a film, I mean, you can take a scene and you can shoot it two different ways, and they both create a very different kind of feeling. It's the same thing happening in the scenes, but how you shoot it can dramatically change.
Again, the restraint on her part.
But that's the thing. I like that she's not evil or mean. She doesn't actually. She's intimidated by that. When she starts to use her powers, as you'll see later on, you realize it's more of a reflex.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when you have. It's gonna sound like a weird. See, I like how sweet this is.
I know.
She kind of. It sounds kind of strange, even though she's small. Her abilities makes her powerful. But it's kind of like when you have a big animal that shows fear, like to a human. It's like, for instance, when horses get spooked by people, the horse is way bigger. The horse can kick your skull in, no problem. Yet it's acting afraid of you. It's more of a reflex. Even though it has no reason to physically be afraid of you, it is. And for her, she's got this power that she can pretty much, just take out anyone. But she still has the instinct of, like, a small girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So unless she's being outwardly attacked, where this, reflex to defend herself kicks in, she's going to be intimidated. This is a big guy. She's intimidated by him.
Well, not to mention everybody's been also horrible to her.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. If she wanted to, she could kill him without any problem. But because that instinct isn't being triggered, she's just seeing this big man, and she's naturally, being afraid. Even though, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it takes him being kind to her to, you know what I mean? For her to relax around him.
I love how this is like the first little indication.
Yeah.
Too.
So right away, telekinesis. We know she can control things, objects and things with her mind. But we still don't know to what the extent. I know we kind of hint at. Even though, here's the thing, folks. If you're listening to this commentary, something tells me you've watched this show already. And if you haven't, while I really appreciate you listening, checking out our commentary, I would highly recommend watching the show without it first.
Yeah. Because
it's a damn good show. And then coming back and, watching it with us. Yapping over it. And here's the thing. If you grew up in this time, kid would never leave their bike.
I know.
I mean, growing up, you had to have a bike. Having a bike was like having a cell phone. What happens when your cell phone starts crapping out? There's problems. You get a new cell phone right away. You don't just not have a cell phone for a while or mobile phone. You same thing with a bike. You always had to have a bike. And the second your bike started messing up, you got a new bike. You didn't just not have a bike. It was so crucial.
Mm.
And here we have, the government listening in. Again, I don't know if this stuff was actually happening or not, but, I mean, it might have been, who knows. But that's the thing. A lot of people thought that it was. And I like how this show is not trying to be like, well, there was a lot of paranoia, but we're going to try to give a more realistic, like, no. We're going to play this like we played it in the 80s. We thought the government was evil and spying on us and doing things behind our backs, and that's exactly what the government's doing in the show. They're not shying away from that. Again, it's not, tiptoeing around it. It's saying, you know what? If we're going 80s,
Yeah.
we're going all in. Regardless of whether you think this is real or not, or you think this is far-fetched, or you think it's un-American to question Uncle Sam, it doesn't change the fact that that was the vibe in the air in the time. So, Oh, that's the thing I miss about landlines.
I know.
You can't angrily hang up a cell phone. You can't just be like, motherfucker, boop. Just lightly tap the screen. And again, this has significance because, again, no kid would leave their bike.
Yeah.
So if they found the bike and not him, right away, that tells you something. And you see how right away their demeanor changes? And again, I'm wondering, is that a generational thing? Because again, that was like yourself. That's like now. I think if this took place now, they would have found his cell phone. They would have been walking around, combing the woods, and they would have found his cell phone on the ground. And they'd be like, no kid would leave their cell phone. You know what I mean? Fair enough.
Popper.
That's a handsome looking dog, I gotta say. I love dogs that can have those bangs like that. I've always loved that. I get jealous because they have better hair than I do. The shed kind of makes me think of the one they had like in E.T. a little bit.
I don't know. I just noticed the horseshoe that was like upside down. Aren't this supposed to be like that's bad luck? You have to have them right side up. I wonder if that's supposed to be like a symbol. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking.
I don't know. I grew up in a place with electricity, so I don't know what kind of folk key like superstition you're talking about. Just kidding. I'm just joking, folks. I don't know. That could be a thing. Again, again, like any, like a lot of like a lot of these kind of classic stories, or from the, these kind of things. These things are inundated with little clues, and so it could very well mean something. Like they put stuff in the shot, that's like if you know what it means, it's like an indication of something. So like as I said, like a good '80s film. Every time you watch it, you find stuff, you pick up on stuff. You know what I mean? Like, oh wow, I didn't realize that's what that meant. Again, that could very well mean that, and that could be very well why they have that in the shot.
Yeah. Or it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, it could be, but I don't know. I noticed there's a lot of attention to detail. So again, the lights went out, and apparently he was so right away. It's kind of indicating something like why what happened just now?
Oh, I've been calling you.
Yeah. So and kind of dropping little hints of what actually happened. But no, I love that there's such a attention to detail in the show.
I love that music.
I know, and again, I like how it's legit 80s synth. It's not like ironic or like no, it's like legit. I love the soundtrack. Oh God, I love their hair.
I know. Like Farrah Fawcett hair.
I know.
And then the dad, who just is there, but not there.
That's like me at work. I'm there, but not there. The family eating at a dinner table together.
I know.
Okay, I just noticed it because the boyfriend is Steve.
Yeah.
Now, if you watch Critters, they're at the dinner table. And, they're talking about like the new boyfriend for the sister is Steve,
Mm-hmm.
and the dad at one point when they hear about Steve, he's like Steve, you know. So I'm kind of wondering is that why they call it? I don't know if that is, but he was played by Billy Zane.
A little girl.
So she's on the verge of having a panic attack at all times.
I
What
don't
I
care
do?
enough to get up or stop eating, though. So funny.
So this is supposed to take place in Indiana, but it was shot actually in Georgia.
Gross.
And I'm kind of you always say that every time with Georgia.
Ah,
We do not like the humidity. I'm sorry that nothing
I
against
went-
Georgia or the
I went
people
to
of
college
Georgia.
there, and I did not enjoy it.
We just don't like humidity. We're not.
I am not a hot weather / humidity person.
Yeah, you grew up in the Northeast, and I literally look like I stepped out of the ice age. So humidity, not our good friend. But I'm kind of wondering too for Millie Bob Brown. That's why she was even able to.
Do Godzilla?
Yeah, because again, she would have been a. Well, that's the thing. I think Stranger Season 2 essentially would have wrapped probably shortly before they start production, but why she could start being in talks because
Yeah.
Godzilla 2 was shot in Atlanta. So it's not far, so she was probably able to kind of get in talks during pre-production while, filming Stranger
Yeah.
Things. I mean, maybe not. It could be just a coincidence, but I thought, no, she's not too far from there, so. And obviously, too, they're probably going to start doing, I know they're going to start doing a Season 3 of Stranger Things, so she's kind of being in the neighborhood. And she is she was kind of raised in both places, but she has an English accent. So on top of what she does with her character, she's speaking with an American accent, which is a performance on her part. So she's a very talented young actor, and it's crazy because
Those walkie-talkies.
yeah, I know, right? Obviously, now this would be done with cell phones.
And then they'd be texting.
Yeah, they could be doing texting, I guess. Well, yeah, because they wouldn't want their parents probably hearing them talking late, so they would probably be texting. I mean, I guess maybe just for drama's sake, they might have them
Yeah.
still talking on the phone, but yeah. Or FaceTiming or whatever.
Yeah.
Google Hangout with each other.
I just love that, they can so easily sneak out.
Well, I don't think realistically it was that easy to sneak out, but in the 80s, they sure made it look like it was.
Yeah. Fucking Steve.
He's like, I don't give a shit. I love that.
Well, it's funnier with their parents, because, they're so oblivious to everything that happens throughout this whole season.
Again, it was not an innocent time, but
No, I know what you mean.
I think there was a perception on adults on the kids that it was more innocent, which is why I think now adults are so much tighter on kids because they realize, oh no, 80s 90s it wasn't innocent, so now they're trying to make it what they thought it was. So
Yeah. This poor guy.
that's been her favorite day on set.
I know, right?
We're just gonna feed you hamburgers, French fries, ice cream.
You just get to eat a lot and not really say anything.
Yeah,
He's funny, though.
she's so adorable. It's crazy though. If you see her now, she looks like she's 16, 17, 18, easy. She's matured, she kind of has the whole Emma Watson thing going on. The first couple of Harry Potters, oh, she's a young girl. Then the third one was like, Jesus Christ, is she 25?
I know.
And right away, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Aw, hope you didn't get attached, folks.
I know. I feel bad because he was such a nice guy.
And again, it's the government actually killing its citizens. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Again, it's one of those things during the Cold War, like this time period. It's like, yes, we were all taught to be afraid of, like, the Reds and all that. But here's the thing, too. We didn't really trust the government here. Again, it was kind of like big government on both sides. People were feeling just like, is everyone out to step on us,
Mm.
And again, it's so interesting to see kind of the social climate, how normal it was to feel that way back then. And again, I was obviously, again, this is before I was born, but I remember enough of the '80s and the '90s. Obviously, the Cold War was over, but there was still a lot of that lingering distrust. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, and it kind of subsided over time a little bit. I mean, people have their own issues with the government now for different reasons, but a lot of what people don't trust about the government now, I think, is a lot more transparent. It's more obvious, whereas, back then it was like everyone thought they were up to, secret laboratories and experiments and all that. That's what we thought. Our fear of Uncle Sam was more science fiction-y. And again, who knows? Maybe they were doing all that shit. I don't know. Hell, maybe they're doing it now. She's like, you bastard. I really like this actor right here. He plays this guy so naturally.
I know.
Again, everyone is like a slam dunk with these actors. Like, I don't know. It's like,
Nice.
again, it's one of those things where, I mean, casting is really everything. I mean,
By
you
the
can
way, I wasn't saying nice and kissing. I just realized that. I'm saying nice because of Toto.
start making it like nice. That's what I came to see. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I wasn't saying nice to them.
Bear in mind they're underage and we're adults, so that
No, it was to Toto.
you better have been talking about
I
Toto.
love this song. I forgot. Oh man.
Yup.
Duh. Yeah, it is.
Look at him. Oh, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
He is good. I've employed some of those maneuvers
Because you're a terrible person.
more than a few times. Oh, of course, I'm a terrible person. I was a guy once upon a time.
This is true.
Now I'm just a man with white in his beard. But once upon a time, I was a guy. And guys want to do guy things. Hey, look at her. Oh, he's got her now. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he puts the moves, and then she's like, I don't know about this. Instead of pushing, he stops and respects her boundaries. And the second he does that, oh, she is putty in his hands. Like, oh my god, he respects me. Not allowed to do anything. It's terrible. I'm getting a really kind of patronizing look out of the corner of certain somebody's eyes right now. I sound terrible to say, but I love how anguished these two look. It's
I know.
again, I like how they're miserable because it feels very realistic. Like they lost their what they're going through. It's like they would be a wreck at all times. Again, that's why I don't have a problem with Winona Ryder basically just being an emotional train wreck literally the entire time you watch the show because it's like what she's going through, what they're going through is like Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Like,
And it's funny because the castings are really good for, all of them.
well, yeah, and that's what
Like, they kind of do look alike.
and that's the thing. There's no weak link here for me. I mean, again,
Yeah.
that's our opinion, obviously,
Well,
but
yeah. I love how that's kind of the first
yeah, a little.
implication.
That's creepy. I love that.
Yeah, that would be terrifying.
And you hear in the background, oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. It's just so eerie. It's so like this, like unnerving, I guess is the word. It's like it's something again. I love how it's using like what you don't see. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
hearing something is way more frightening than seeing something because the best special effect will always be your imagination. Your mind will always create something more terrifying than
Oh yeah.
anything. Even with today's technology, I've always said like with CGI, it's like
What's kind of the problem with most, quote unquote horror movies nowadays, or supernatural, paranormal, whatever you want to call them, is that it's all jump scare stuff where it's
yeah.
like,
You're,
oh, look at the scary monster.
yeah, you're not legitimately afraid. You're just startled by something,
Yeah.
but it's not like because it's scary in its own. Like a true horror movie, I think is like there could be literally nothing happening in the scene. You don't see anything, nothing's popping out, and yet you're terrified.
There she is, the fateful encounter.
I know, I love it. The music. Oh, I love the music. And there we have it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on chapter 2. Peace.